Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron, and today I have a very special guest, Miss Debbie Timmerman. She is the current board member for Place 7, and she's running for reelection. And I had Mr. Pitts on yesterday, and now I have the incumbent. Miss Timmerman, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Thank you for coming on. I really, I tell every candidate that comes on, I really appreciate them wanting to be transparent and coming on here. It's not always the most comfortable thing. And then getting in the meat grinder that is the politics, the local politics. It can be intense sometimes, and those things are
Yes, it can.
changing. Those things are changing for the worse, unfortunately. And so it has affected us. So I wanted you to, I know that you've noticed that Waxahachie's grown a little bit. So I wanted you to go ahead and give a quick little bio on you to the people of Waxahachie.
Okay. I am an educator. I taught school for 17 years, and I was a principal for 23. Uh, After I retired, I went back into the classroom as a substitute, and I did some star tutoring. You just can't get that out of your blood. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Um, I have two children, grown. They both went through WISD. One was a baseball player. My daughter was in the band. So I had a little bit of athletics and fine arts. Um, I now have, next year, I'll have three grandchildren in WISD. I'll have a seventh grader next year, a fourth grader, and a second grader. And that's the big reason why I want to stay on the board, not only for my grandkids, but for every student in the district.
Well, definitely, definitely could be helpful to, you know, be able to direct the way the school district's vision goes, or help direct the way the school district's vision goes for the rest of the kids of Waxahachie and your grandchildren. It's like an extra
Yes,
bonus, you know. So
absolutely.
I I wanted to know, how long have you been on the board, and what do you think are some of the qualities that you have brought to this board?
I've been on the board for 3 years. I'm the newbie. I've been on there the least amount of time. I think my greatest strength that I brought to the board and why I got elected was because I am an educator. I can look at the things that come to the board as an educator, and also in the classroom, and also as an administrator. So I think that was my biggest strength. And also being a grandmother with kids, with grandkids in the district.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's definitely experience. Um, you have been on the board for 3 years. What do you think about the direction so far of the school district, and how it's fared in the last 3 years?
I'm very proud of what we've done the last 3 years. Of course, you can never predict something like COVID. I think anyone that served on the board, not only in our district, but in every district during COVID, it was a big challenge. But we met the challenge and we got kids back to school as soon as TEA said that we could get them off of virtual learning. We made the decision to bring them back before the rest of the districts did. I'm very proud of that. The recent TAPER report, the Texas Assessment Performance Report, shows how we did. And our district was one of the few that showed gains while other districts declined. And that's because they made the decision to keep their kids at home. So I'm very proud of that.
Well, that the pandemic was definitely a big hit. I'm definitely going to cover that. What do you think, Ms. Timmerman? What do you think of the transparency in the board? Do you think it's transparent enough? Is there some things that you'd like to see to improve on that? Are you happy with it?
I'm happy with it. I really don't know what else we could do to be more transparent. Our meetings are open. If you can't come, we're online. If you can't watch at that time, you can always go on and watch the videos and know exactly what we're doing. The meeting's always posted like we're supposed to do according to law. The only part you don't see is when we go into closed session, which can't be out in the open because we're talking things like personnel issues that are confidential. I think that the district does a good job with transparency.
Well, I did see that, and I've watched the board meetings when they go live on YouTube and other places, and that is definitely a good thing. What do you think about getting parents involved in the decisions of the school district?
Oh, I think it's imperative. And I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but right now we just have begun a long range planning committee where we brought in people from we have students, parents, business leaders, community members that are on the board, that are on this committee to bring an idea and a plan, a 10-year plan to meet the growth as far as facilities go. You have to have input from stakeholders. Just like we just did our core values and our vision statement, we got 2,700 responses from our survey, one-on-one interviews with 60 people. I was on the committee where we brought all that together, everything people had to say, and it was from a cross section of the community, and that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, all the stakeholders being involved is
Yes,
important. Parents, teachers, everybody who's involved in teaching the kids. Um,
yes.
that definitely, that involvement is good. There's actually studies that I've read where parental involvement um, led to higher scores, higher grades, higher just in general. So it is a good thing, definitely.
Yes.
So we touched on it earlier. COVID hit, and you know there was a lot of stuff that happened during COVID, closing schools, um, isolations, plexiglass,
Mhm.
masks, and so it became quite a contentious thing. Um, and some people just really didn't like it, and some people did. So as a board member, you were caught in the middle of that. Maybe WISD wasn't as affected as other districts, but I'm sure there was something. Um, what do you think about the way that you guys handled COVID now that you can look back on it and actually examine it?
I would give our district, our board, an A+ on how we handled COVID. Um, we had a lot of concerned parents all about the masks. Some wanted their children to wear the mask, others didn't. We got emails all the time, and that's good. We had parent communication. We knew where people stood, but our main concern had to be, and it remained, what was best for the kids. And as long as TEA said, keep those masks on, we had no choice because TEA is like the law of the schools and we have to do what they say. As soon as they gave us the opportunity to remove the mask, we did. But those that chose to still wear masks, that sure they could. Our protocols were excellent in the schools. Other districts copied our protocols because our nurses and our staff did such a great job of putting those together.
Yeah, I
We never had to close school.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
what?
we had to close school in that spring. We went home for spring break and we didn't come back. But that next year we started school on the day that our calendar said. And from that point on, we never had to close the school or the district. And we're very proud of that.
Yeah, and that was a I had talked with when I interviewed Judge Little. He told me, and I asked him about this in retrospect and what he thought about COVID. He said, I got a call from HHS that it was possible 200,000 plus people would die. What do I do with that? You know, um, and so I could only imagine as a board member sitting there and and having to deal with that and that coming. I mean, what decision's going to be right there? You know, so uh, So there was some learning loss. You did mention earlier that Waxahachie did make some improvements. I noticed that in other school districts, there was learning loss amongst ESL and special education. Did
We have
Waxahachie
learning
experience that?
loss. Oh, yes, we have gaps in learning. We most definitely do. And
Uh,
our teachers are doing everything they can to close those gaps.
Ms. Timmerman, what do you think you can do, or what have you done as a board member to support that growth? Because as an educator, you understand you have a lot to put into 1 year, and now you're having to put 2 years in 1 year. What can a board member do to support their teachers and the district and Mr. Hollingsworth in getting that learning in?
Well, when you hire a superintendent, you have to trust in him. He's in charge. He puts together a plan along with his administrative team. And they decide what is best for the students. That we don't have those decisions. All we do is approve the plan when they bring it to us. You have to trust the people that run the district, the ones that are in charge, and that they're doing the best for kids, and they have been.
Mr. Hollingsworth is a great hire.
Yes.
I've enjoyed. I've had him on. He put out a lot of good information. So as a parent, I can appreciate that hire. So moving on with the learning loss, special education is something that is near and dear. I have special needs kids, and I understand that there's a lot of mandates that come down when it comes to special education, but
Oh, yeah.
no money behind them. And so, Ms. Timmerman, what what have you done as a board member to support growth in special education, and what would you like to see going in the future?
Well, let's go back to when I first got on the board. When I was running the last time, every year a survey was done for the teachers, and it covered a lot of things. One being special ed, and the teachers are very honest when they take that survey, which they need to be so that we can see how we're doing. Well, when I looked at that survey, one of the things I was talking about in my first forum that I did was the part on there about special education, because it said that resources were lacking. Some of the teachers were unhappy. So we addressed those things by having an audit done of the special ed department to see what areas needed to be addressed. And once that audit was done, it showed us, and those areas have been looked at and there have been improvements made. Can there still be some improvements? Yes. But I would match our special ed teachers, our diagnosticians, our special ed aides up against anyone. They're great, and they do exactly what's needed for our kids. And funding is always a challenge, not only for special ed, but for everything, because you know how it is. The state mandates all these things, but never with enough funding.
Never with enough funding. There
Yes.
are things that are put on the school that they have to do, but there's no money behind it, and so that could change with an influx. You have growth happening, so you get 6, 7, 10 special needs kids. That's not something you budgeted for. Now you have to come back to the board and ask for money, and what happens to the kid during that time? So special education, the the thing with special education is there's been an industry that's grown up around it with education advocates needing education advocates and even education lawyers, because parents struggle with school districts. And so kind of wanted to see where you were at with special needs so that the people of Waxahachie can know.
Well, can I say something about the
Yes,
art?
ma'am.
Um, Sitting in on many arts over the years, and you're so right about parents. Those meetings can be very confusing. There's a lot of things that are talked about that parents may not understand completely, especially some of our parents that may not speak English very well. Our special ed teachers and our diagnosticians try very hard to make sure that our parents understand exactly what's being said. And also to be told that if you're ever unhappy with anything that's happening with your child, all you have to do is call for another meeting. And by law, we have to have one. We only have so many days, and we have to have a meeting to address those concerns. And I know that some parents bring advocates with them that can explain it to them, and that's a good thing because you always want the best for your kids, and you want those parents to understand exactly what's being said to them.
There is a lot of jargon. There's a lot of jargon that goes in that. There's a lot of things that you can do by law and what you can't do, and
Yes,
those things. I mean, they if attorneys are being hired for this stuff, it is complicated for a layman, and especially someone who English second learner. So I
yes.
appreciate you addressing to the people who walks actually on special needs. So I've talked to Dr. Hollingsworth, and one of the pride and joys that he brought up was Marvin Elementary doing kind of a nursing or health program and partnering with, I think it was Baylor. I could be wrong,
Yes.
and I
Yeah, they were
apologize.
Scott and White. Yes.
Partnering with Baylor. So I wanted to talk to you about CTE, and we could talk. You could talk about that particular thing, but nowadays or schools were tailoring for a long time. Basically, you went through high school and you went right on to college. College wasn't for everybody.
No.
The trades have provided a good life for a lot of people, and so and not everybody, not everybody was meant for it. So what are your thoughts on CTE? How the district is doing with CTE, and you could talk about Marvin.
Okay, well, let me start out talking about Marvin. Marvin is going to be our biomedical academy. I went to the grand opening of it when we must have like 700 families there. It was excellent. The kids were able to go through to the classrooms and do a lot of the different activities. You could just see the excitement that they had. And I got to talk to Dr. Ledbetter, who's from Baylor, and he said, "Look at that young man over there. He's been standing there for 30 minutes staring at that skull and asking us all kind of questions." And we could just see his mind ticking. And it was great to see a student be able to come to a school that has that interest. It's all about choices, just like the Wyoming STEAM Academy with those kids and using the STEAM activities. Not that we don't have STEAM activities in all the schools, but Wyoming just takes it to a different level. Choices are the things that parents want. We need to motivate kids to stay in school. We need to reach whatever interests they have. As far as CTE, I can't say enough great things about, oh my goodness. Those of you out there that have not seen our CTE department at the high school, you need to come out and you need to walk through and see what we have. Go eat at the reservation. Those culinary arts students do a great job. You've got cosmetology, welding, car repair, law enforcement, EMTs, computers, all kinds of things for students that they can have a certification, and when they leave high school, they can go straight to work because college isn't for everyone. It's not. And you're right. We used to push kids on that one thing: go to college, go to college, go to college. But it's not for everyone, and you can make a real good living plumber, welding, electricians, air conditioning, car repair. All of those people that go into those fields make a very, very good living.
I know for a fact that air conditioning people can make over 100 grand a year,
Oh,
and
yes. They'll
it,
make a lot more than the teacher ever makes.
yes, it's but a teacher does that service, so
Yes,
it's
that's right.
one of
It's
it's
a
kind of one
passion.
of those, yeah, and so I yeah, that CTE program, it does sound exciting, especially when Dr. Hollingsworth told me about that Marvin
Oh, yeah.
Elementary. One of the things that your opponent had brought up was maybe doing a school or a high school that focused like was a focused on, this school is focused on medical only, just medical. This is their big thing. What do you think of that idea? What do you think of having the like back, I think they used to call them like magnet schools, where they
Yeah,
focused
Dallas
on.
has several of them. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Eventually, we're going to have more than the high schools than we have right now. It's going to be interesting to see what the long range planning committee comes up with. But yes, I think magnet schools are great.
Miss Timmerman, one of the things I see online all the time is about the congestion going into that high school. And I talked with Dr. Hollingsworth about it. There's been some comments about that high school going into it and stuff like that. So yeah, we're getting a lot of people, and eventually growth is coming. Do you think that the board is adequately addressing growth, proactively addressing growth?
Yes, without a doubt, we are. The that long range planning committee that I just mentioned, their their charge is to come up with that 10-year plan so that we can be able to meet the growth in our community. And it's a lot. All you have to do is drive around, you see all the homes being built, the apartments being built. They're all going to have kids, and we're going to have schools for them to go to. So this 10-year plan that the long range planning committee is coming up with, they're going to take us through those 10 years. And yes, we're going to have another bond. It'll be up to them to say, well, when are we going to have that bond? And
I
will
was
it
going to
be
ask you.
a year or 2 years? But also they'll have laid out, it won't be our only bond. Let's just say we have a bond next year. They'll have to say, but wait a minute, in 3 more years, if the demographers are right, we're going to have another bond. And wait a minute, before this 10-year plan is out, we're going to have another. And that way the taxpayers aren't surprised because you got it laid out. As long as the growth is like the demographers say, and you can meet that need. So yes,
Yeah,
I think we're doing a good job.
that is that growth is amazing, and the demographers, I bet they come up with some crazy numbers. And you know what, if they've been predicting the last 4 years to be like this, then they've been on the money, because
Oh
it
yes.
there is a lot of people moving to this area. So you mentioned bonds, and I was going to ask you about that, but um, I'll get into that kind of subject. So the budget, um, the budget has different expenditures in it. Um, what can you do in the budget, and what do you think? What would you like to see a priority in the budget being worked? Because we're in budget time. I know we're the district might be the Dr. Hollingsworth might be coming up with that to present to the board, but it's getting to budget time. So, what priorities would you like to see on that budget?
Well, we already did have one meeting on budget already.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm
and
behind the
we,
power curve.
oh, well, you have to start getting ready. And we had a discussion. We actually broke up into groups and were given choices of what we felt were our priorities. And excuse me, one of those has already come true. One of the things that we discussed at that time was, do we want to spend extra money for extra staff to help the teachers out at the high school with their scheduling, making it more so that the teachers could have a conference period every day so they have time for their PLC meetings, to help out with overcrowded situations, that will help also, hopefully, with the the times that classes can't be covered with substitutes, because that's going to struggle this year. So many of our substitutes are retired teachers, and they didn't want to come to school because of COVID. Uh, but yes, I think we're doing a good job there. But
Taxes. Taxes are
okay,
the other thing that's mentioned. I mean, you can't have a conversation about anything without taxes. So
uh,
there's a lot of people, homeowners, that are saying that they're being priced out of their homes, and one of the biggest taxes in your tax bill is the school district. Yeah, along with, you have the city and the county, and you have the school district being usually being the largest. So what do you tell those people that that are having those difficulties? And do you think that we need to have a tax cut?
Wow, that's taxes are always a hard subject, and it's so sad when you see people that can afford their homes, but they lose them because they can't afford taxes, and taxes are high. Since I've been on the board, we've not had to raise the tax rate. The reason being is because of all this growth that we have in the community. But another part of that is 15 or 20 years ago, the state paid two-thirds of the school district's cost, and the district paid a third. Well, now it's more like 50-50. And as our properties go up and we start collecting more and more money through taxes, the state's going to start giving us less money. So it's a double-edged sword. You want the growth, you want to keep taxes where they're not taxing people out of their houses. The state's decreasing the amount of money that they're giving to us, and it's a tough situation.
Yeah, it definitely is. Funding the priorities, and yet, the community struggling with taxes. Yeah, that puts things in a tight spot, and things cost more now. I mean,
Yes.
I know you've noticed things are getting quite expensive, and I'm sure that that's hitting the budget, and they've had to come back to you, the school district, asking for um, extra money because of it. I'm not positive about that. So,
Well, one
you know,
thing when you say extra money, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
no, that's
uh,
fine.
the government did do a good job this year as far as giving us ESSER funds to help close the gaps with learning. And we were able to use those funds the way the district saw fit in order to close those gaps. And that money has helped us out tremendously.
Yeah,
And we were
and
even able to give substitutes a raise. If they worked so many days a month, they could make more money trying to get more subs. Um, and we were able to do a lot of course, the majority of it was spent for kids in the classroom and for teachers for resources to help kids close the gap.
what do you think about WISD's current pay rate for the teachers? And you mentioned that you up the rate for substitutes. I don't know if it's close to the average. Do you think that it needs to come up more eventually, or can
No,
you
it
talk
needs
on that?
the substitute pay needs to come up, and we've talked about it several times. Some of the school district, well, let me go back. We brought it up, and so they did a comparison and brought back to us where they compared what we paid subs compared to the districts around us. And really, we didn't fare too bad. We were right even with some were a little bit more, some were a little bit less. But none of them are paying substitutes the way I feel they should be paid. Because when we're turning over our kids to these people for a day to instruct, not to babysit, but to come in and make sure kids do not have a wasted day. And yes, I strongly feel like substitutes need to make more money.
Yeah, that the teacher shortage in general. That was one of the things I talked with the state board of education candidates for our district. We talked about that teacher shortage and what they can do to streamline the process of certifying these teachers in order to get them out there, and but
Well,
still keep the standards high.
I
So
work with student teachers right now. I work for SAGU. I forgot to mention that, but I work for SAGU and supervise for student teachers. And one thing I say to them when it's getting close to them graduating is, hey, when you get out there, if they don't give you a mentor, you find somebody and you make sure that you have somebody that can support you because we need you to stay in education.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I'm saving this one for the end, and I mention it because it's been all over the country. There's been, along with COVID, there was conversations about race, and now one of the biggest things that around the country is CRT and SEL. Some parents, uh, for it, some against it. Some people say, well, it's not in our schools, and then some people see the tenets of it in the school and not so much the college course, and they relate it to SEL because it's a social part of learning. At least this is what they have said. So I wanted to kind of get, before we close, and I let you talk to the people directly in Waxahachie. I wanted you to kind of address that.
We're fortunate here in Waxahachie that we've really not seen the CRT, or we haven't had any problems with the social emotional learning. Uh, None of that's come up to us. But what I can tell you is that the schools in Waxahachie, Texas, will always stand for the values of Waxahachie. And these things that you hear in CRT and some of the things that go along with that social emotional learning um, won't be seen in our schools.
Well, that's definitely a definitive statement. I'm sure the parents appreciate that. So I wanted, this is the part of the show where I shut up and I let you talk directly to the voters of Waxahachie. So here, I'll just give you the solo scream, and you go, Ms. Timmerman.
I'm Debbie Timmerman, and I am running for reelection for place 7 for the WISD school board. I feel like I have done an excellent job on the board, being a champion for our students and also for our staff. I'm in the schools, I'm visible, I'm a band booster. I work in the concession stands. I've been doing that since my daughter was in the band. I love going to the sporting events and the banquets and everything that has to do with schools. I'm also, I have a third grade. I've adopted a third grade that I've done things with this year. I go and read to classes. Everything that I've been involved in has to do with kids. We just started a new chapter of the Kiwanis here in Waxahachie, and I was just elected a director of that. And everything that the Kiwanis does, and from fundraisers, everything goes back to kids. I also work for Students in Need, where we have craft fairs and do things to have them get money so that we can feed those students in our district that aren't getting enough to eat. I also serve on the SHAC committee, which deals with the health and well-being of our students. I even have little puppet friends that I take around like I did when I was a principal, and I read to our younger students, and that always goes over real well. I enjoy doing that a lot. You can see, hopefully, that I have a passion for education. I have a passion to do what's best for our students and our staff. And I can promise you that I will continue to work and put the time in that it takes to be an effective board member. Early voting starts on Monday. It lasts all next week, and then May 2nd and 3rd, with Election Day being the 7th. But I would ask you to go vote before the 7th, because the 7th is Mother's Day weekend, and some of you may be out of town. And voting is so important. Everyone should get out and vote. There's a city election too. And when you do go and vote, I certainly would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Ms. Timmerman. I know that you didn't know much about me, and you gave me a chance so you could come on here and talk to the people of Waxahachie. So I do appreciate that, and I'm humbled by your time. Um, this pretty much closes out the interviews for the candidates in Midlothian and Waxahachie. I've tried to get every one of them to come on, and had success mostly. So I hope you like those interviews and you get out on Monday and vote, people, because this is what the show is about, that keep you informed. There is one more opportunity, a forum that's coming up on Monday. And so we're trying to get that together, and there'll be more announcements on that soon. Ms. Timmerman, thank you again for coming, and you take care and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Can you stand by real quick after the show so I could talk to you?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.